Peace, beloved. Peace, beloved. It's time for another great episode of the Beach Brothers Show. It's time to get beachy. It's time to kick back in your nice recliner chair, kick your feet up a little bit, have a nice beverage to sip on. It's time to get real beachy. It's time to get beachy. It's time for the Beach Brothers Show. I'm Seko Varner. Below me is my good friend Conrad Chesventer. And below Conrad is our good friend Jose Cruz. And together, we're the Beach Brothers Show. All right. So, Conrad's running for city council. If you're interested in joining the show, then get in contact with Conrad. He's the booking agent for the show. Get your financial house in order. If you're interested in featuring your business on our show, then get in contact with Jose. All right. And I'm the producer of our fair show, and we thank you for tuning in. We want to salute our sponsor, our business sponsor, Tally and Twine. Tally and Twine is located in Portsmouth, Virginia. They have high quality watches for men and for women. Here are some of the beautiful actually, here are some of the exciting men's watches they have to offer on their website, tallyandtwine.com. Here are some of the sexy women's watches they have on tallyandtwine.com. Go check out tallyandtwine.com. Here's the watch I have. I love my watch. So, Tally and Twine has some great watches. They're built here in the Hampton Roads area in the beautiful city of Portsmouth. It's time for you to get a watch from Tally and Twine. I'm Seko Varner. I handle credit repair, tax resolution, debt consolidation, and private money lending. So if you need some credit repair help or you need to get some money to do a real estate investment, if you're a fixer and flipper or a buyer and holder, get in contact with me. Or if you need to get your credit repaired, we can take care of that as well. And the man of the hour, too sweet to be sour, Conrad Chesventer. He's running for the Rose Hall seat in Virginia Beach. What's good, Conrad?
I'm pretty sure I can be sour from time to time, but let's keep it as sweet as possible. Great evening, Beach Brothers Show viewers. And not too long ago, the Virginia Beach Education Association did a pack the parking lot protest. It was at the school administration building at the Municipal Center. Kelly Walker and others at the VBA are making it known that the organization supports safe openings of schools, safe in a way teachers and administration can be confident in. And just because I'm a city council candidate for Rose Hall's district doesn't mean I don't want my voice heard on the matter. I appreciate VBEA's efforts at the school administration building, and I have family working as teachers and as administration, and would love to have them have a safe environment. As for right now, across town from all three of us, there's VB City Hall. City Council is meeting in a formal session with big ticket items. As a co-host of this show and a Rose Hall District City Council candidate, I want you all to know how and why I vote on those big ticket items. First, a resolution opposing offshore drilling and seismic testing. Offshore drilling can bring the positive of new jobs and some infrastructure to the area, but it also presents the danger of contributions to greenhouse gas emissions and environmental damage with a spill. Seismic testing is used to locate the best places to drill offshore, but doing so severely hampers marine wildlife, which rely heavily on underwater hearing. Luckily, when presidential candidate Tulsi Gabbard came to Virginia Beach, I asked her this question, and she was against federal offshore drilling. I would vote yes to oppose it here. Second, there is a resolution requesting the VB Circuit Court put forth a referendum on the November general election ballot. The referendum asks for a city charter change allowing direct election of district council members. In fact, it's probably going on as we still speak. Why are direct district elections important? Representation. Look to Burton Station. Burton Station is a community founded by freed slaves in the northwest portion of the Bayside District. It was the last section of the city, north of the Green Line, to get basic water and sewer lines. That's the kind of stuff you just take for granted when you move to a city, but they didn't have it. And it wasn't like it took all the way to 1914 to get it. 2014 was when the city started that project. For decades, people in the community lived unequally, and many ended up leaving. The community has a higher concentration of racial minorities than other parts of the city. The voice was drowned out for years by the voices of the rest of the city. See, with our current system, the whole of Virginia Beach can vote for Bayside's councilperson, and like in 2018, the Bayside district voted more for one person, but the rest of the city had enough votes for the other candidate to win. It's difficult enough fighting for community representation when you're roughly 20% of the city population. The city can count the number of council members who have been Black on one hand, and 2 of them are serving right now. Since significant chunks of that 20% are in certain districts and not evenly spread, the LR system of voting for council people dilutes the percentage's power. Much like a corporation flooding the market with new shares, their district vote is diluted. And I'm vehemently supportive of this. I want to reform our system of voting towards representation. That's the type of thought-out decision-making you'll get when you select Conrad Chesbrennan for Rose Hall City Council seat. To help me get there, stop by Conrad Chesbrennan for Virginia Beach Facebook page. Afterwards, stop by raisethemoney.com/cchesbrennan and donate to the same goals. Another person who has a lot of Virginia Beach ideas on her mind is tonight's guest, Lucia Owens. Until recently, she was an at-large city council candidate for Virginia Beach. She's a Virginia Beach native and a Princess Anne Cavalier. She has a bachelor's in criminal justice focused on homeland security and a master's in legal studies, both from St. Leo University. She's a professional involved in local marketing and technology too. She's a wife, mother, and very interested in local politics. We might say she's a moderate conservative and a member of the RNC. So, Ms. Owen, what brought you to want to run for city council in 2020, and why have you stepped off that direct path for the time being?
First off, I wanted to thank Conrad, Seko, and Jose for having me on tonight. It's definitely a pleasure to be on the Beach Brothers show. Regarding my run for council, I actually chose to run last year in 2019 after a multitude of events that occurred. One of the main reasons that pushed running for city council across my mind was the flooding that took place in our city during Hurricane Matthew. I grew up in Windsor Woods, which you ultimately know is ground zero for the flooding, and many of my friends' parents' homes were affected because of it. The way that some of our city elected leaders had handled that situation was appalling to me, and many families were affected, and some considered the neighborhood not worthy to obtain assistance because the property values were not as wealthy as other areas of the city. So in my mind, the representation like that, I felt the concern for many normal everyday citizens in Virginia Beach livelihoods were being overlooked and lacking because of the financial status they were considered in. And no one should not have a voice in politics, especially in local politics. So I started looking around. I did think about running for Rose Hall at the time. It was just not in the cards for me. So we launched our campaign in January. Since then, I have become pregnant. I am 7 months pregnant right now. I am due in October. That was not enough to push me away from the campaign trail. But then COVID happened. And with all the quarantining and the fact that pregnant women are considered high risk, it was a little bit of a concern at first. So I kind of tapered back to see what was going on. And then in June, I was involved in a very serious car accident, which ultimately flipped my SUV. So after that, I kind of stepped back, talked to my husband, who was a big supporter of me running. And we have a 6-year-old daughter and our baby boy on the way. And we just thought, let's just take a step back, get off the campaign trail because of the stress I didn't want to endure. And then just, try next time around.
And Mr. Jose disappeared on her.
So, Lucia, you're a member of the Republican National Committee.
Yes.
I'm not sure if you're a member of the Virginia Beach Republican Party, but 2020 is a big year for area Republicans. We've had on the show Bill Curtis and Jimmy Frost to discuss their drive to be chairman. And the mass meeting election sort of fell apart earlier this month. Walk us through your view of the local Republican efforts.
So right now, I feel like the local efforts are literally in shambles. The Republican City Committee is at odds. They're fighting over each other in terms of the control right now between Bill Curtis and Jimmy Frost. I like both men. I know both men. But ultimately, there's a decision that has to be made in the event that we go into another election. And I am not a member of RPVVB right now, but I feel that the direction that the Republican Party is going is not in the right direction. We've lost a congressional district seat. We lost Stolly's seat to Nancy Guy. We did keep the Republican seat that Jen Kiggins was able to claim, which was Frank Wagner's, and that was heavily contested with Cheryl Turpin. But it wasn't like it was a huge win for us, but at the same time, it was at the loss of Stolly. So I feel like we're losing the metrics. We didn't win Villanueva's seat back from Fowler because Shannon Kane was unable to clinch that back. Rocky Holcomb was not able to win. Bill DeSteff was able to narrowly win, as well as Glenn Davis, with a lot of the money that was coming in from the Democratic Party. And it felt like the Republican Party was not as organized. I feel like we need to do a lot of more grassroots initiatives. The Democratic Party is very big about backing local politician or political candidates. And unfortunately, the direction that the current leadership within the RPVB, they do not want to back Republican candidates. They'll say, oh, well, we'll put them on a ballot, a sample ballot. But there's more to it than that. There's a lot of work that comes up to election day. So I feel Jimmy Frost is the best decision. I voted for him. I'm sure that my ballot is still sitting in that box. And if you open it up, you'll see my information because I was not on that list. And I'm like, how am I not on that list? I was a local candidate. So it was, and the way that election was ran, if that's the way that the party's running, the Republican Party is in a lot of problems right now.
Interesting. I was there that day as well. It was. Now, I voted in every election since 1990 here in the Hampton Roads area. Particularly, well, I think I did vote twice in Norfolk when I moved to Norfolk for 2 years. Well, no, I was in Norfolk for 10 years, and I voted there. But I voted in Virginia Beach for at least 18 years. And it blew my mind that I had to do a provisional ballot. Jimmy had to do a provisional ballot. That's what really messed me up. Jimmy Frost had to do a provisional ballot. He wasn't the only one. I think whoever the sheriff is had to do a provisional ballot. And that was an interesting situation. Very interesting situation. Well, right now, our city council is having some really interesting discussions. You and I were actually just watching those discussions before we came on. Yep. One of the things they're dealing with, and Conrad just talked about in his little spiel, was the offshore drilling and seismic testing. So what are your opinions on those two issues?
So I'm not a huge, I'm a proponent for keeping the environment the way it is. I'm not one of these big climate change people who are screaming out loud that we need to constantly focus on this, that, and the other. But I do feel that when it comes to seismic testing and offshore drilling, it ultimately will affect our economy one way or another. Yes, it would probably bring jobs, but at the expense of what? The expense of the environment and the marine life. Marine life is a big portion of our livelihoods. People who are fishing offshore, fishing trips is a big one. As long as it's continuing to have issues with the testing could, potentially harm any of the animals, I'm not really big on. So that's offshore drilling. I'm not exactly sure of how far out they want to go. I'm okay with wind turbines. That's one thing, but I just don't feel that, drilling into the ocean or seismic testing is necessarily the route to go.
Okay. Jose, what do you have to say?
Now, the other big ticket agenda item is beginning a conversion from at-large elections to direct district elections. Do you want people running for a district seat to be selected by the whole city or just the district?
So the way that it currently is, it's the big ticket money items is the way that I convey it as. You have your at-large seats and then you have your district seats, but they're kind of at-large seats. So it really makes a lot of, not a lot of sense. It's very confusing. A person who particularly lives in Rose Hall, for example, would have to raise a multitude of money because you got outsider money coming in, or let's say Bayside or the Beach District. The at-large races we all know are very, very expensive to run into. I know myself. At one point, I had a little bit more money than Rosemary in my account in the VPAT. I was like, woohoo! But I know the name of the game. Ward system to me is if you have to live in the district, I feel that only people that should be voting for you are the people that live in that district. I don't feel that people who live in town center in one of the TIF areas should have control over who's representing the Sand District with the agriculture, and same vice versa. Jim Wood actually challenged me online on Facebook and said that the only time he knew of in the past 20 years where there was an instance that he saw that the person who won the district won the vote outside of the district, but not the actual vote on the in district, was David Nygaard. And I said, actually, that's incorrect. I pulled the polling numbers myself. I pulled them into a spreadsheet and pivot table and all that. And that's when I discovered that Brad Martin actually would have beaten Lewis Jones. It's instances like that. And that was a very, very close race to the point that it came down to a recount. And it literally, even with the Bayside race, it came within 37 votes. I feel that you have to be representing the community and the neighborhoods that are within the district that you represent, but those people should be the only people voting for you unless you're in an at-large seat, which I'm completely okay with having 3 at-large seats, plus the mayor, which is an at-large seat, which is understandable. But if we have district voting, then it should be only for those people that are in those districts.
Interesting. Yo, you brought the receipts. In other words, you brought the demonstrable evidence. I love it. I love it. Wow. Wow. So you're saying it was a difference of 37 votes?
Yep.
Interesting.
That's not much of a difference.
Nope.
Is that within the margin of error?
That was not including the absentee ballots.
Oh, okay. Okay. Interesting. Interesting. Well, I understand that you're a big sports person. As a matter of fact, you like wrestling.
Yep.
Okay. How are you connected with wrestling?
So I was actually on the wrestling team in middle school at Independence for about 3 weeks.
Oh, okay.
For 3 weeks.
I was like,
I was on the team with Pharrell Williams' little brother, Kato. Then I became the athletic trainer for the wrestling team at Princess Anne when I was there. My husband was a Cox High School wrestler, state finalist, who later on went to college and wrestled, and then coached at Cox for 6-7 years. So we're heavily involved. We've always been involved. I was a co-media director for the Virginia Duels. One of my best friends has one of the biggest blogs out there, Matt Talk Online. He's big with USA Wrestling. He's an ODU alumni. All my buddies are wrestlers. Literally at our wedding, we had the entire groomsmen with wrestlers. And then half my bridesmaids were associated with wrestling through a sibling.
Wow. Okay. Well, I bring that up because, as you just stated, you've been heavily involved in local wrestling. Some ODU and, my home by the Hampton University have canceled their wrestling programs as a result of the environment that we're struggling through. So what are your thoughts on the local wrestling scene? How is this impacting wrestling? That's something that we really don't talk about.
So I know Steve Martin personally. I actually helped tutor some of his wrestlers his first season there. And Steve was a good choice for coming from Great Bridge. It was the 2 guys that were the high school coaches that went up to college, was him and Kevin Dresser, who was at Virginia Tech, and Kevin's now at Iowa. And it was the loss of that program of Old Dominion was definitely a sucker punch to all of us who are in the wrestling world and in the Hampton Roads. We have a very good friend of ours who actually was in our wedding, who passed away last year, Jamie Kelly, and he was an MVP. And his wife was very, his widow, Jacqueline, was incredibly elated the fact that they chose to eliminate wrestling. Jason Bryant, who is one of my closest friends, he's the same way. He's been actually doing a lot of Freedom of Information Act requests with Old Dominion to figure out what actually went down to cause this, because it literally came out of nowhere.
Wow.
Wood
He's
Selig
foiling.
essentially
Wow.
was he was the decision maker, and he based it off of, he used COVID as a reason. Then he said that we couldn't get the funding. There was a lot of people who have had funding because, now here's the thing is Virginia Tech almost lost their program right when Tom Brands left in the early 2000s. And they have a major benefactor who donates to Virginia Tech, who said that he would pull every piece of funding that he provided to the institution if they got rid of the wrestling program. The guy donates so much that he could probably have a building named after himself. So they obviously thought about it, and they said, okay, forget about it. And that's when they brought in Kevin Dresser. I
Yeah, it came
like
to the
seeing the
money.
Virginia Tech ODU, the constant battles they would have. I love watching them at the Virginia Duels. But the fact that they removed the program, it hurts our local area, because you have high schoolers who thrive, who grew up going to Old Dominion Monarch wrestling matches, whether it was at the Field House or even at the TED. And now they don't have really much to look forward to besides going to UVA or Virginia Tech or the multitude of Division III schools that are opening up. I wish that ODU would have chosen a different route and kind of looked at things differently, because they got rid of wrestling to accommodate women, was it volleyball? And that's not the route to go. I understand it has to do with Title IX, but they could have brought on another sport.
Okay. Dealing with Title IX, for those who are uninitiated, why was that a factor in their decision?
So they have to have a certain amount of female sports to offset the men's sports. And they eliminated the wrestling, and they included lacrosse because of the football program, and the amount of scholarships associated with the football program increased the men's population in the athletic world and they're within the institution. So they had to bring on another sport, and they had to eliminate a men's sport because of it.
If they had to eliminate a men's sport and you had the chance to choose, what would you have chosen?
I would have added another female sport, but that's just
Okay.
me.
Okay. Good stuff. Good stuff.
Well, you're in marketing as well, and you'd have brought a marketing view to council. I take it you're aware of the $2 million marketing plan that the city of Virginia Beach is using to get people to come here in Norfolk. Is it good? Should taxpayer dollars be used for marketing so much? And if so, is this the best way to do it?
In terms of marketing, you have to be very efficient with your use of funds. I work for a major construction company in the Virginia Beach area, well, the Hampton Roads area, which we're actually nationwide, and we're constantly looking at our return on investment. I don't feel that going into a partnership with Norfolk during the summer enhances anything. Especially, I'm not sure if Norfolk contributed anything. But we have to spend money in order to attract money, and you have to do that in marketing. That's the whole thing and you have to spend money to make it. I think that there could have been different ways and different approaches or different campaigns they could have done in order to attract new tourists or attract people to come back during COVID, especially. I don't feel that collaborating with Norfolk was the right initiative to go, because we're constantly combative over tourism or whatever it is, because, we want to build a sportsplex and they've already got something, and we're always constantly at ends. And I understand about bringing regionalism all together, and I'm for working with other cities. I just don't feel that at this time in COVID, the number one industry that we really are hurting the worst in is tourism, and trying to push them off to Norfolk is not the route.
Now, there's a rumor you and Conrad got into a debate, though not heated, over firearms at an Americans for Prosperity Tidewater Social earlier this year. Firearms is not an issue missing from the public sphere, with Virginia and Virginia Beach laws coming into question in 2019 and 2020. When it came up for municipal restrictions on guns in municipal buildings, how might you have wanted to vote and why?
I would have voted to allow them. I know Jason Nixon very well, and his wife Kate wanted to bring a firearm with her. Ultimately, that morning, she made a decision that was between her life and protecting herself. She was a very avid firearm owner. She shot all the time. And it was known that the shooter had shot her first, went into her office, shot her in the shoulder, left her office, went down the hallway to shoot a couple other people, and then came back. And that's when he gave her her fatal shots. She could have protected herself had she had a firearm on her. I'd spoken with a number of other victims that were survivors, and they were avid firearms owners too, and they felt that if they were able to protect themselves, they could have at least saved some. When I have a firearm myself, so does my husband. I have been proponent of firearms. I actually interned at the National Rifle Association, so that's where I learned about firearms. That's where I first shot a firearm ever, and they propose responsible gun ownership, and that's the part that I always get in odds over. Is you have your criminals who are always going to break the law versus the people who are responsible gun or firearm owners. And I feel that the responsible ones could have possibly stopped them. Maybe the person who had that was laying on their horn, maybe if they had one in their car with them and they were able to stop him, they would have stopped 11 people from passing away that day.
Right. I agree.
Interesting. All right, so speaking of guns, or people who carry guns, the mayor of Virginia Beach and some other local dignitaries attended the recent Back the Blue event in Virginia Beach. So the past couple of years, the amount of employed police officers in the city has been one of the campaign topics for a lot of the candidates. And there's still a rough shortage from what the city would really want to see. Do you view Back to Blue as a philosophical thing or maybe a more literal thing? Would you want to put money behind it, i.e.? And would you want council to help increase funding to hire more officers, particularly at the chambers and, city council?
Yes. I feel that Back to Blue should be a literal theory. You put your money where your mouth is. And okay. I feel that we need to support our law enforcement officers. We are lucky to live in a community where we don't have issues that we're seeing across the United States happen right now. We are lucky we have police officers and law enforcement personnel and sheriff's deputies who are respectable and they respect the community and they respect the residents in the community. And I have several friends that are within the Virginia Beach Police Department. I have friends of mine that I've known that, for example, when May 31st happened, he's on SWAT and I heard his voice come over the police scanner. And that's when it hit me. A guy that my husband coached in wrestling is on the SWAT team. And I see these guys. I have a really good close family friend of ours that's a detective. We need to do what we can to support them because they put their livelihoods, they put their lives on the line for us on a daily basis. There's always going to be those bad seeds we have out there that we're seeing across the country. But it's not happening here right now. We need to do what we can do to promote the positive law enforcement experience and continue to promote the positive and safe communities that we're used to living in, because right now it's chaos. Every night we're hearing of shootings, and that's not Virginia Beach that we know. And I think a lot of it has to do with police officers aren't getting the funding. There's a lack of them, and they need more out there.
Now, what would you use the funding for? A lot of the police proponents and supporters and back to bluers that I've spoken to are really interested in funding more weapons rather than more personnel. Where would you end up on that argument? Weapons or personnel?
I think there's a median that you can find between the increase in weapons and then not so much weapons, but also bring in personnel. You need the personnel because you can't fire a weapon unless you have somebody behind it.
Okay, intriguing, intriguing. Um, yeah. Well, Virginia Beach. If you're speaking specifically of Virginia Beach, yeah, we haven't had a lot of reports of police overreach and abuse. Not in the last 10 years. Now, I've been here in Virginia Beach since 1990, and it wasn't so fun back in the 80s when I first arrived, and 89, because I started coming to Virginia Beach in 86. I started in the Great Hampton University in 86, and I tell you, 89 was rough. 1990 was rough in terms of the experiences that I had with some of our officers. Now, I have friends who are officers, so the last 10 years have been beautiful here on the beach. When I look
Absolutely.
at the entirety of Hampton Roads, we can't say that. Um,
No,
but okay, good stuff. Good stuff. Okay, good stuff. Brother Cole.
It's a little ominous that as at last I had my mic muted, I heard some thunder off in the distance, and it reminds me that last Thursday I left the hotel to pick up a coworker. She wanted a ride due to an hour of torrential rain. I had to go through high water to leave the parking lot. I did zigzags through Virginia Beach streets just to move 4 blocks, avoiding even higher water. Pulling the same move to get back to the hotel from the town bank area toward coastal edge. I was in water that was even splashing near my grill. My car made it through sheer luck, and I was gunning it the whole time. That Jetta put up a fight. And while I don't endorse taking a four-door car through high water, I do endorse getting said four-door car at Southern Volkswagen in Chesapeake. Go to 1248 South Military Highway, speak with Cynthia Rawlings and Charlie Roy, find yourself a fighting car too. But remember, all of this is based on flooding, and I hate it, and I hate how we're dealing with it. I want to fight on city council to increase state and federal help on this matter so we don't have to cut it like we did this year due to COVID. If you were still fighting for the at-large seat, how would you want to jump in on this?
flooding has been a big topic since 2016 because of Hurricane Matthew. You've had multiple um, people campaigning on it. It seems to be the common thing to jump on. It's got a big bandwagon. Growing up in Windsor Woods, I mean, mind you, moved into Windsor Woods when I was 6 months old, and my aunt now owns the house that I grew up in. That was my grandparents, so it's still in our family, but it's near and dear to my heart. Thankfully, my grandparents' house didn't flood because they were on the other side of Presidential Boulevard. But to see what happened, I remembered Hurricane Matthew in my neighborhood, and my daughter was 2 years old at the time, almost two, and not even going three-quarters way down our driveway and being waist deep in water. So it's ultimately going to affect every piece of the city. And I think until somebody and all of city council gets it through their head that it's going to in fact affect tourism. It's going to affect the agricultural. It's going to affect the military. Military is already starting to combat it in other areas such as Norfolk. Until they get it through their minds that we absolutely need to tackle this and we need to put money behind it rather than every bright and shiny new object that comes by in development. Um, we're not going to go anywhere. We're going to have a bunch of people who are going to preach a bunch of promises with absolutely no results. We need conducive solutions. We need people to come to the table and say, this is what we need to do. This is how we're going to fund it. Vote for me and I'll help make it happen. Bow Creek is probably the best idea that has come so far, but that was because of a lot of awareness being brought to the table. But it still hasn't started fruition. They still haven't started the conversion from the golf course into the multiple BMPs. So this is something that's going to hit us all because of the fact that we live in a coastal community. But I would definitely be putting that. That's one of my platforms that I was putting and positioning for the campaign, and I actually had how we were going to help pay for it. It was going to come in with technology. I was going to promote certain things. Can't put that out there. Don't want anybody to jump on that bandwagon, but there were certain ideas that we had already started to roll. So, but I think until we get candidates that are going to be able to tell you the metrics of how they want to get it done, how they're going to get it accomplished, and how we're going to get there, we're going to continue to see the same thing over and over again, expecting different results.
Okay.
I agree. I
Now,
agree.
one of
Hey,
the more
shout.
common topics for city council candidates to talk about is Virginia Beach development. Right now, there are 3 developments in the Virginia Beach area, in Virginia Beach City, that are making noise. That's the Wave Surf Park at the Dome site, the Westminster Canterbury 22-story resort on Shore Drive, and Thalia Wayside. What's your take on Virginia Beach development, Virginia Beach Council, and those 3 projects?
So, the surf park at the Dome site. It's an interesting thing when you're telling people you're going to have them swim and surf 2 blocks away from the ocean. But if it works and they can get the funding, then by all means. But my argument was, how many waves are you going to give the guys? How much are they spending? My husband's not only was he a wrestler, but he's a surfer. I have a surfboard right to the right of me in my office. So you need to put these numbers out there. It's not going to do away with the surfing down at the oceanfront. And no, we cannot sell Rudy Loop to whoever wants to be the biggest bidder because we're going to build a dome park to facilitate the surfing. But we do need to do something with that parking lot because it's just sitting there. And we should get something that we can get some tax incentives off of. Westminster Canterbury, that thing's a monstrosity on Shore Drive. And I know it's incredibly expensive to get in there. I don't agree with the way that they approach those the condos that they have, and how they bought the condos and then pretty much evicted everybody in order to buy that. But that's capitalism at its best. They're redeveloping the property, and people will be living there. They'll be living their last years with a beautiful view. Thalia's got me more riled up. I used to live in Thalia. My husband and I, when we first got married, we lived in Thalia, right off of Thalia Road. And I used to run exactly past where they're talking about proposing these apartments. It's ridiculous. There's absolutely no capability for traffic there. The traffic light is already at capacity. There's not enough width. The parking lot already at Willis Wayside, since they built the Aldi, is already packed as it is. I remember when they first redeveloped all that and they added where the Tijuana Flats is. That was fine. But to pop up apartments on top of right next to wetlands and Venture Realty thinking they can get away with it, and I know exactly the route that they're going. They think that they're going to put that in prime location because they feel that they're going to put the right people in city council who are going to finally push light rail through, and these people will be within walking distance to the light rail because it's right down the street, right across from the boulevard. It's not a good position. The whole point of Virginia Beach right now is the issue at hand is flooding and broken infrastructure. The current roads are not built to facilitate the population we have. The current roads are built to facilitate the early 90s before all the military came in, not the population boosts that we've been continually to have. And building all these apartments is not the answer. I worked at forrent.com where I used to do analysis and marketing initiatives on property management companies and the vacant rates. It's going to be turning us to an Omaha where you're going to have abundance of all these luxury property little areas, and then they're all going to be vacant, and then we're going to be what? Concrete, a concrete heaven or something?
Good point.
Wow. I tell you, I'm impressed with the amount of awareness that you have with our city. That's
Indeed
impressive. That's wow. Okay. Okay. Because you not only know what's happening, it sounds to me like you may know some of the motivations behind those things. You implied some of those, and that's wow, wow. Yeah, I'm happy that you're expecting newness in your family, and we're all sorry that COVID happened, but I think we missed something with you as a candidate. I really think that the
Hmm.
city of Virginia Beach missed something with you as a candidate. My good friend Stephen Johnston. What's up, Stephen? Everyone do the Stephen Johnston face. Okay. What about property owners' rights? What are your thoughts on his trolling? Did I say it? I mean, his question.
So, property owners' rights. I own a property. My husband and I own our house. We have our single family home that we've lived in for 7 years. Um, I know what's going on at Sandbridge, where you've got some of the cities starting to provide easements and going up against properties and in order to provide these additional parking spaces and eminent domain. And here's the other issue: when it comes to light rail, a lot of people don't realize this. Any property that is connected to that line can be automatically eminent domained because of a light rail initiative if they vote in favor of that. It's within the state bylaws. So I'm not for that. I think it's ridiculous. I remember over by London Bridge when they wanted to build that ramp. Um, there was a couple who owned a home and they owned property, and the state paid them absolutely nothing. It's just like Oldmeyer Homes, funeral homes, when they went to do the new town road and they tried to give them some ridiculous low property rate um, in order to settle, just to have them move. That's not right. You don't just eminent domain somebody and think that you're going to give them bare bones minimum. If anything, I would have gotten Kevin Martingale involved and had him go and fight for it. But
Hmm.
the thing is,
Ooh, you got inside people. You have
Yeah,
inside
she
people.
got she
We
got
missed out.
plugs.
VB, VB, we missed out. We did kind of miss out.
Yes,
this
we
Continue.
isn't the
did.
last time you're
Continue.
going to see me. Trust me, I'm telling you. This is not my final hurrah. I will be back.
Okay,
Um,
Okay.
we'll be here
and
waiting.
I guarantee you, a lot of candidates are probably very happy that I'm not in the race right now. And then they're also like, well, at least I got 4 years. So we'll see.
Okay. All right. Well, Virginia Beach schools are under tremendous pressure to try to accommodate learning for thousands of students while maintaining safety for teachers, administration, staff, support staff, bus drivers, the whole works. So, while this concern is not necessarily in the city council's purview, what would your preference be on the reopening of our schools?
So, as a person who wants to run for office, the answer would be we don't vote on that. Well, I'm a mom. So, let me tell you what I experienced last year, well, this past school year. March the 13th, Governor Northam decided we're going to close schools. We're moving forward. They're closed. So March the 16th, my daughter went to started school again, and I worked from home. And thankfully, I have an employer who allowed that to happen. And I was at home for 2.5 months. As a mother who works, my husband works. He works for the federal government, and he's essential personnel. There's no way that he could have been home doing this. But trying to juggle both was I thought I was going to pull my hair out. I'm surprised I made it out. But watching her go from this vibrant kindergartner who is excited about school to hysterically crying at night because she hates doing her work this way because she has no interaction with her teacher. She has no interaction with her friends. She doesn't have that one-on-one at all was heartbreaking. When I told her that they're more than likely going to go back to virtual learning when school goes back, she started crying for 30 minutes again. As a mom, it breaks your heart. I understand the teachers too who are concerned about going back to work with the heightened awareness. But I'm going to tell you, I've been back to work and I'm high risk. I've been back to work since the middle of May, and I come in touch with a lot of people too. Um, the other issue that I think a lot of people don't seem to take into consideration is what about those children that are being neglected? What about the children that are the victims of domestic violence? What about the ones that are not getting what they should at home? They're being silenced right now because the only outlet they have is going to school. That's their safe zone, and they don't have that right now, and the school system's taking that away. They're not being able to
So,
converse with the teachers because the teachers could possibly know what's going on. I'd be interested to see the amount of complaints to CPS and if they decreased overall because of COVID, because the teachers not interacting as much with the children.
you know what? That's a great point. It's a point that other people have raised. I've wondered why the school systems and the school boards haven't discussed publicly. They may have done it privately in their secret sessions. Uh, how they could provide a greater amounts of safety for those
Yep,
students who are in very treacherous and traumatic situations. Because while they come to the school, we have a protocol for that. I'm an educator, so we have a protocol when we realize that a student's in an abusive or otherwise traumatic situation. Maybe we should develop a protocol for this, the same concerns in a virtual environment. And I haven't heard anybody talk about that. Interesting point. Interesting point. I'm glad that you spoke as a mother. I'm glad that you spoke as a mother because uh, even if you were on the city council, you'd be a mother.
yep,
Even if you were on the city council, you'd be a citizen of our great, city of Virginia Beach. So,
absolutely.
yeah, you spoke. Yeah, keep speaking. Keep speaking. Interesting. Interesting.
I would like to add one little quick question because I also recall that I'm pretty sure school board met at roughly the same time city council did today about some interesting topics too. And while we were both interested in running for city council, I am not of the opinion I would want school board meetings to be meeting at the same time city council meets, especially when we have a concerned populace that would like to probably speak at both.
Absolutely. I think they need to have it broken out. They need to have it spaced out separately. I think they do that because we know you have the typical people who will go to both. There's traditional people who attend the majority of both that attend the majority of council meetings that more than likely would attend the school board ones. I feel like it's their way of controlling the scenario and also keeping parents and community members silenced because they have to choose. We shouldn't have to choose. We voted these people in. I'm sorry. The superintendent, he is a product of Virginia Beach. He is brought and appointed by the school board that we are electing. So he works for us, not the other way around. Same thing with the city manager. I mean, I knew we had a lot of problems with Hanson. Duhaney, he just started. I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt. I'd like to see him interact with the community members a lot more, and instead of what Hanson did, and we all know how he was, but it would be a lot more helpful for community members who want to voice their concern and their opinions because ultimately we're the ones being taxed to fund them. And it would be good in order for them to be able to hear all of us.
Mhm.
I agree with that.
I do as well. Good point.
Intriguing. 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 So I'm going to amplify my point. Uh, at this juncture, VB is missed out. So in the future, we have somebody to contend with. We have somebody to consider, and hopefully, you've just raised the bar. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
Thank you. I
All right. Any
appreciate that.
last words, gentlemen? Any last words?
I'm just greatly appreciative having Lucia on, and like we're a little remiss that you weren't able to continue with us throughout the next few months of running for council. I am definitely appreciative of the fact that you're not skipping out of any future wanting to
Nope.
discuss and be involved in politics going forward. So definitely stick around.
I appreciate that. And I definitely will. I'll be the thorn on a lot of people's sides.
There you go. We loved having you on the
All right.
show. It was a pleasure to meet you. The Beach Brothers wish you the best with the whole pregnancy and everything. And hopefully we see you run again.
You will. I promise. Trust me.
Oh, good
Okay.
stuff. Good
We'll
stuff.
be here waiting.
Wow, gentlemen, I'm impressed. I'm impressed. I'm
I'm
impressed. Now,
upset.
Conrad,
We
when you
missing
shared,
out.
yeah, when you stated that she wasn't running, my first thought was, well, maybe it's not a good fit to have her on the show. But after the positions and the details and the receipts, I mean, she really came with well documented evidence. I love that. I love that. So
She did
that
her
was a
due
beautiful
diligence.
thing. Right, right, right. Because proper documentation kills all stupid conversations, and she came with it. So
Indeed, sir.
salute that. Hey, we want everybody to know that the Beach Brothers Show is a Virginia business and politics show. Conrad is running for city council. However, if you'd like to join our show like Miss Owens did, then get in contact with Conrad. He's the person that does the booking for our show. We can make sure that you're on the show. If you have a business and you would love for your business to get highlighted, the same way we've been highlighting Tally and Twine, well, get in contact with Jose. He'll make sure that your business gets the highlight that it, so well needs. Okay? Speaking of Tally and Twine, it's time. It's time for you to invest in a high quality watch that was created, designed, inspired, and manufactured here in the Hampton Roads in the coastal Virginia area in the 757. I did say inspired. Tally and Twine is a intersection in the great city of Portsmouth, Virginia. So, inspired, manufactured, created, sold, and employs Hampton Roads residents. Make sure you get a fine watch from Tally and Twine. They'll make sure that you're on time. We already talked about the Beach Brothers show. So if you want to get on the show, get in contact with Conrad. If you'd like to have your business highlighted, get in contact with Jose. Our good friend Conrad is running for city council. How crazy is that? Any thoughts, Conrad?
Remember, everyone, jump on by Conrad Chesviner for Virginia Beach on Facebook and also raisethemoney.com/cchesviner. Help me out along the way. I also would like you guys to jump back on Thursday because we're going to branch back out to the 804. We're going to have on Richmond City Councilwoman Stephanie Lynch. So stay tuned this upcoming Thursday.
Okay, okay. I'm your local entrepreneur. I help with credit fixes, tax resolution, private money. So if you're an investor, a real estate investor, I can help you get the money that the banks won't provide you with. So give me a call. We also do some debt consolidation with you. And one of the things we don't get a chance to really highlight that I think we need to take the time to highlight is our good friend Jose Cruz. So Jose, man, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you bring to the table?
Thank you, Brother Seko. Well, in addition to life insurance needs and final expense preparation, we also offer retirement planning. We also offer options where people can lock up their money and never lose a dime, go ahead and protect their money and always gain some interest. So they can go ahead and prepare for retirement and have a nest egg once they get to that retirement level and don't have to use all their retirement years to work every day. So if you're
Okay.
interested in getting your financial house in order or taking care of your life insurance needs, reach out and give me a call.
All right. Well, brother, we're going to do something unprecedented. We're going to bring back on Miss Owen because we had a great question from our good friend Marcus. And
Okay.
unfortunately, when Marcus asks a question, we have to post it because he helps support the show. So that's the way the cookie crumbles, right? That's the way the cookie crumbles. So, what are your thoughts on the remaining candidates, or maybe your first impression thoughts on, Michael Berlucci? Yeah. So, what are your remaining, your thoughts on the remaining candidates? Ooh, this is gonna get juicy.
So the remaining candidates, there's things I agree with and there's things that I don't agree with. Um, of course, because they're opposing candidates. Right now, it's a matter of consistency. It's a completely different campaign because of COVID. There's not a lot of stuff going on in terms of meet and greets. So I feel that Rosemary's a big name. We all know it. She's at large. She's been running at large for the past 20 years. She's knows the game. She also is coming off of a loss. She knows it too. She's more vulnerable than ever. And I've said this to her. You've got Nadine Panisha and you got Brandon Hutchinson. So it's going to come down to who can be more consistent, who can stay the line, and who can keep their nose clean. So, because Rosemary will have something up her sleeve, does, with the exception of Guy Tower. Guy had something up his sleeve. And I think Rosemary knew she took that race a little too for granted. She thought she automatically won it first. And she didn't. She was serious about it. It took a lot out of her, but she also wasn't 100%, I will say, through that election, and you could tell. But between, you got two new people on the block that are going to be up against her. As long as they don't split the vote against her, one of them will come out. But it's going to be ultimately, I personally want to see a 2-man race. That's just me.
Interesting. I took a lot of bravery actually to answer the question, so I want to salute you for that. Good stuff.
I know why, because Marcus was on my team for a few weeks, so he's probably alluding to a comment I made about Brandon Hutchins when he first launched his campaign last year. I laughed at the fact that he referred to it as the 6th district of Virginia Beach, and I asked if it was the Hunger Games. So. And I will put it out there. I am a open book. I have no problem with putting out there what I've said. You see me as you go. And I was like, what in the world is this? It's the 6th district. It's the Beach District. This isn't the Hunger Games. So yeah, I'll own up to it.
Interesting.
Wow.
Oh wow. That level of transparency is heartwarming.
Are we ready for that?
I don't know.
Good stuff.
I'm not used to that much transparency with public office.
Well, not with the candidates. Well, I will say this: Rosemary was on our show, and I was impressed with some of her answers. Was she on last week? It was last week, right?
Yeah.
Rosemary last week. Yeah. So salute to Rosemary. I know that.
Absolutely.
You mentioned that she's going to come. Yeah, she's well seasoned. She's very well seasoned. So I know that Rosemary, you said trick up her sleeve. I know she has some strategies that are highly effective. I'll put it that way. She has some highly effective strategies.
I mean, Rosemary knows that, she knows she's done a lot of good for the community. And she does know what her demons are, and she understands that, such as her association with Bruce Thompson. She understands that. And a lot of people don't convey that as positive. Right now, you've got the battle of the two Bruces in this election right now, and a lot of people don't realize that. You've got one candidate being financed by Bruce Smith, and then you have another candidate who has that relationship with Bruce Thompson, and it's all about a battle of Rudy Loop. A lot of people don't realize that that's what ultimately it comes down to. Bruce Smith wants to develop Rudy Loop. And Bruce Smith is stacking the council. He's pulling a page out of the Bruce Thompson playbook. And I think a lot of the community needs to realize what is happening. It's not just candidates, it's positioning.
Interesting.
Wow. A moment of silence for that truth.
Yeah.
I just had to let that sink in. I had to let that sink in.
The Battle of the Bruces. I like it.
Which Bruce are you a fan for either one of the Bruces?
I'm neutral.
Okay. Good
He
stuff.
sacked too many Raiders.
What'd you say?
All right.
He sacked too many Oakland and Los Angeles Raiders, so.
Oh wow.
I'm sure. I wonder how Bruce Smith feels about his team being now referred to as the Washington football team. So,
Oh,
Well, we would love to have Bruce Smith on someday.
but I will say that was ingenious. It's just like go football team.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. I thought it was a nice move. I actually kind of expected that. I kind of expected that they would have made that move 10 years ago, but that's, yeah. It's an interesting time that we're in. Interesting time that we're in. So thank you again, Miss Owens, for joining the Beach Brothers show. Yo, fellas. Uh,
Good show.
Conrad.
yeah.
Last words, Conrad. Last.
Just guys, and thank you for coming all on tonight and enjoying it with us. We appreciated the candor, and we want as much candor as possible when you guys come on.
All right, Jose. Last words.
As always, thanks for following us on the show. We love the questions. Keep them coming, and keep tuning in. We'll have more to come. A whole lot more.
Okay, beloved. Okay, beloved. Peace to the protesters. Keep it beachy.